Vicki Meyer is a lawyer in the district attorney's office, and she will go first with her opening remarks.
As Mr. Bland said, I am Vicki Meyer. I used to work in the district attorney's office from 1990 till 2009. While I was there, I became the head of the juvenile division, where I supervised a staff of 5 attorneys and 6 support staff. In 2009, I then moved over to the city. I primarily prosecute domestic violence there. My job as a prosecutor is to hold people accountable for their decisions, their criminal actions. My passion as a prosecutor is to, once we get that responsibility or the accountability, that we make sure that they become productive by putting them in programs, by getting them help, by not necessarily always putting them in jail. As a prosecutor in the city, I primarily deal with misdemeanors, so I don't deal with jail like we did in the district attorney's office. I have dealt with thousands of people on a daily basis that live in our community. Normal people, people just like all of us, mentally ill people, we're seeing more and more of those in our court system, drug and alcohol addiction problems, as well as anger issues, anything that can make you make a poor decision. Probably 90 to 95% of the people that I deal with are good people who are just making very bad decisions or a poor decision. My goal as a prosecutor is to make sure that they get the help so that they don't come back into our court system. I have raised 2 children here in Wyandotte County, gone all the way from Silver City up through Sumner Academy High School. They've both graduated college now and are out there being hopefully productive citizens. In one of them, my oldest moved back to Wyandotte County and lives here and works in Lenexa. I was a teacher here in the school district for 10 years, was very active in KNEA at that time, served on the executive board as well. After teaching for 10 years down at Grant and Douglas Elementary Schools, I decided to go back to law school. I went back in the summer, and in 1989 of December, I graduated and started work on January 2nd for Nick Tomasic in the district attorney's office. I've never looked back. I love prosecution. When I was in law school, I did legal aid for a year there as part of a class. We spent over 40 hours a week doing representing people there from Douglas County. I did a lot of civil work while I was doing that. Also, while I was in the juvenile DA's office, or division of the DA's office, we did civil work there also in our child in need of care department. So I have the experience of doing criminal as well as civil. I have done hundreds of bench trials, I've done jury trials, I've made arguments to the appellate court. So I've done the gamut. I believe that my experience for those 25 and a half years leaves me qualified to be the next district court judge at Division 7. Thank you.
Okay. Courtney?
My name is Courtney McKessick, and just a little bit about myself. I was born and raised here in Wyandotte County. I'm actually 4th generation Wyandotte Countyan. I grew up on Leavenworth Road around 55th Street, across from Christ the King Church, which was actually my church and my parish and where I went to school. After Christ the King, I went on to Bishop Ward, where I graduated, and then went on to Kansas City, Kansas Community College, where I graduated and played volleyball, so I'm happy to be back at my alma mater. I graduated at KCK Community College, summa cum laude, and went on to Long Island University to play volleyball, where I graduated magna cum laude. Came home, went to Washburn Law, and was fortunate to work at the Washburn Law Clinic, where I was able to represent people who weren't fortunate enough to afford an attorney. One of my first jobs out of law school, I worked with the Kansas Supreme Court. I was actually a law clerk there. Then I came back and I worked with Nick Tomasic as an intern at the Wyandotte County District Attorney's Office, which really prepared me to go into civil litigation, where I've been over the last 10 years. And I'm very proud of my reputation as a civil litigation attorney, and I've worked my way up, and I'm now the managing attorney of a civil litigation law firm. Now, our litigation law firm, we have 2 offices, one in St. Louis and one in Kansas City, and we're actually one of the leading law firms in collections, litigation, and breach of contract. I manage a staff of attorneys and a staff of support staff. When I'm not in court, I am a judge pro tem here in Wyandotte County, so I've had experience on and off the bench. A judge pro tem fills in for our current judges when they're on vacation or in CLE, so I've had experience handling cases and trials. As I mentioned, as a litigator here, I'm licensed in both Kansas and Missouri, and I've handled cases in 41 cases in 41 different counties in Missouri and over 19 in Kansas. So I know what it's like to be in front of a judge that has pretty good experience, and I know what it's like to be in front of a judge that has a little bit better experience. Also, one thing that I'm very proud of is that I'm on an appointment list in Missouri. So for the last 10 years, I've done pro bono work. So I've gotten experience doing a lot of criminal matters, doing a lot of civil assignments, and I'm very proud of my work with those who can't afford an attorney in this in cases. So I have a lot of experience doing various DUIs, criminal charges, things like that, and I would just really like for you guys to get to know me tonight, and hope to earn your vote.
Okay, thank you very much. We will start with questions, first with Vicki Meyer. What is your experience in civil litigation?
As I said, when I was in legal aid, I represented people in divorces, a lot of landlord-tenant actions. In juvenile division, we do child need of care, and that is all based on the civil code, not on the criminal code.
Okay. Courtney?
I started out at Holbrook & Osborne, which is a civil litigation firm. I did medical malpractice, defense litigation, breach of contract work. We did mechanics liens, and now I'm the managing attorney of a civil litigation law firm. We do everything from contract work to collection work to breach of contract for large banking litigation to small individual citizens who have breach of contract work. So I have ran the gauntlet of every type of civil litigation cases there are, from big to small. I have over 1,000 cases, from bench trials to jury trials in both Kansas and Missouri.
Okay. What has your experience been with criminal litigation? And we'll start with Courtney.
I started out in the district attorney's office as an intern, but I was fully licensed at the time. I was on the adult criminal side. I did some of the charging. I did DUI trials. I did all the traffic cases. And with also my experience now, I'm on a appointment list. So I do a lot of pro bono work for those who can't afford cases. I do child in need of care cases. I do juvenile appointments. A lot of times I represent battered women. I represent juvenile cases where I could represent the mom, the father, or the child. And so that's been my experience. On the criminal side, a lot of times some of my clients on the civil law firm will come and they'll have a criminal case, and we'll represent those clients too.
Okay. And Vicki, what is your experience with?
That's been my 25 and a half years. I've done everything from the lowest disorderly conduct to homicide, and everything in between. And now, as I said, primarily now I do primarily domestic violence and work with victims there.
Yeah. Okay. What would you do to better inform and educate the public about the role of the judiciary? And we'll start with Vicki.
Well, I think your biggest target group would be to start with your high school and middle school kids in their civic groups, their history groups, or government classes. Turner I used to go there at least once or twice a semester to talk about the judicial process. and how it works when they would get into the different phases of the government. And the kids would ask a lot of really good questions because they see what's on TV, and that is so unrealistic of what our real experience is in a courtroom. So being able to go in and educate children or youth, I thought that was a great experience. Not too many of the schools nowadays do that. I haven't done that for several years. But I think basically starting with our youth is where we need to start.
Okay. Courtney?
I think the youth is important, but I think adults are just important. I'm very active in the community here in Wyandotte County. A lot of the groups that I'm involved with is I sit on the board of the Leavenworth Road Association. I'm a board member there. And a lot of times the adults aren't informed about what are their rights, things like probate matters. And eventually, all roads kind of lead to probate. So a lot of times we'll go in and I'll give little presentations on what the court system is, what's jury duty, what's it like to get a summons, what are your rights on a breach of contract cases. And I'll go to these small community groups and just give a 15-minute presentation on what to expect if you have to go to court and kind of navigate them through, just the nuts and bolts of what to do. I'm also highly involved and have been endorsed by the Women's Political Caucus, which is just highly involved with legislature and the court system. So it's very important to be involved with the community and get active in groups like that.
Okay. We will now have closing remarks, and we will start with Vicki.
As you heard from my remark with youth, I have been always working with the youth as a teacher, and then I was on the Kansas City, Kansas School Board also for 18 years. So I obviously advocate for that group and believe we can always do more with them and for them. I believe that dealing with individuals in our community, as both Courtney and I have done, you learn how to listen. And when you listen, sometimes it's very hard. Some people, when they want to talk to you, are very difficult to get to where we need them, to where I can understand them, because so many things are surrounding them that have upset them. And I think in order to be a good judge, you have to be able to listen. You have to be able to then determine how to be fair and honest with those people. When you have a defendant or a victim that's talking to you or in front of you in a courtroom, you have to be willing to listen, but you also have to be willing to tell them honestly, here's what it really is, here's what's going to happen, here's how we get there. And I believe that I can do those things, and those are great tools for a judge to have.
Okay. Courtney?
So I'm very fortunate because my dad is Judge David McKessick. And I'm very close with my dad, and I often go to him for advice. And so I've gone to him for advice through this process. And I've asked my dad, what do I need to know about being a judge? What's the one piece of evidence you can give me to help me through this process? And he's told me, Courtney, when you're on the bench, you're going to have good days. You're going to have some of the best days of your life where you're going to bring families together. You're going to help people out. You're going to build families. You're going to make marriages. You're going to do adoptions. But he said, you're going to have the worst days. You're going to tear families apart. You're going to have to make hard decisions. But he said, as long as you follow the golden rule, he said, you will do all right. Follow the one rule. And I said, well, Dad, tell me what it is. What do I need to know? What's the one piece of evidence? He said, everyone who comes in that courtroom, he said, treat fairly. He said, treat fairly and with respect. Treat how you would want to be treated. That is the golden rule. So I can promise you, as your next judge, everyone that comes into my courtroom, I will treat fairly and with respect. And after this, I'm going to pass out some cards. It's going to have a lot of more information on me. So please look at my website. Call me if you have any questions. Look at my Facebook page. And I would really appreciate your vote on August 2nd.
Okay. Let's give the candidates a hand.